Hi, welcome to the Coaching Game. I'm Laurie Lawson, and tonight my guest is Caroline Ceniza Levine. I did it so good before, but we welcome her even if I did mess up her name. Hi, Caroline.
Hi, Laurie. Thanks for having me back.
I love having you back. Caroline is the partner of something called Six Figure Start. And she is going to talk, as you know, this game is based on Points of View, which is a fantastic coaching game full of cards and all kinds of tricks to sort of get you to bring your right brain and your left brain thinking together. So I asked Caroline, I said, what card would you like to deal with? And she immediately said, fear, I'll take fear. And that makes sense because you have a fantastic book out about fear, right? What's the name of that book?
Yeah, it's called How the Fierce Handle Fear.
How the Fierce Handle Fear. Okay. The card we're going to be, and we've all agreed that this is a little frightening. The card we're going to be using tonight is this one. And yes, we agree it all looks like Chucky, so we're going to put him away. and it's fear. But tell us, Caroline, how do you define fear, first of all?
So How the Fierce Handle Fear is actually an anthology that looks at fear from a number of different angles. And so I contributed a chapter on fear in career specifically. So in terms of fear in career, I mean, there's a lot of fear around, am I in the right job or in the right vocation? Am I progressing fast enough?
Can I keep my job?
Yeah, exactly. Am I going to keep my job? Am I a failure? Am I a success and an imposter, in what I'm doing, right? So there are all sorts of angles.
Is anybody going to find out that I really don't know what I'm
doing?
Right? I'm just sort of faking it.
Right. A lot of people have that. They have these accolades and they think, I don't deserve that. And then all of a sudden they're fearful about that.
Yeah. Okay, so what would make someone fierce? How would you say, okay, obviously, no, I'm going to let you say. How would you define fierce and who's fierce and who's not?
I think the idea behind being fierce is that you feel the fear and do it anyway. So you find a way to progress through your fear. So if your fear is, I'm going to fail at this, or I'm successful for no reason, it's being able to maintain your position and work through that.
Okay. It's funny because I have, and this is the one thing I retrieved from my grandmother's house when she died, and it always fascinated me as a child. And it was this, I think my grandfather, who I never met, had made it, and it's a piece of glass, and in there's this yellow crumpled up, paper that's old now. And it says, I'm an old man who have known many fears, but most of them never happen. And some days I would think, oh, I got it, and then other days, because I have no idea what that means. So, and I think I got it. I think it's like many of our fears are generated here and don't go any further. Is that true?
Yeah, I think it was Mark Twain who said, I spent a lifetime worrying, most things never happened, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's true about fear, where sometimes it's just this general amorphous, this doesn't feel right, and so I'm going to define that as fear, or something bad is going to happen and I haven't quite put my finger on it. And so actually I think the first part of it is just defining what that means. So if it's fear of failure, well, what does failure look like exactly? Is it losing your job? Is it not getting promoted? Is it not making a certain amount of money by a certain age? So sometimes we just say, I'm really anxious or fearful about my career in this case, but we haven't really specified what that looks like. And then, of course, if you haven't specified what that looks like, you can't do anything about it.
Exactly. And I find that most people, fear is generated can be generated by almost anything. And I'm just wondering, is there a point where fear is actually, I know there's a book called The Gift of Fear, is where fear is good, but and when you're doing a career, is there even a point there where fear could be your ally as opposed to?
Absolutely. I consider myself actually fearful in the sense that I'm risk averse. But what I think it gives me is the ability to say, okay, what am I afraid of? Oh, these things are things that might go wrong. And if I can identify them in advance, I can prepare so that I can mitigate the bad things that might happen. So I feel like it gives you a window into things that might go wrong, and therefore you can do something about it.
So maybe it's like cautionary, it could be okay, and it could also be
It's like a warning beacon. It's like danger, danger, danger.
Could be,
like,
could be, yeah, might be. But also a planning. You know, it's like, oh, okay, well, this could go wrong. So let me put a little fail-safe here, if possible, or let me. I know one of my favorite questions when I'm doing coaching and people are just so stuck or they're paralyzed by fear. Then I just go, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? Let's do it. Let's go through it right now and get it off the table so you can make some plans about, okay, it could be that I go and ask for a raise and he goes, I'm firing you. I can't afford you anymore. And you're right, you need a raise. You know, I said, okay, so if that happens, what are we going to do? You know?
Right, exactly. And it might lead to another discovery. So, okay, so you get fired. What does that mean? Could you find another job? And maybe as you're looking at that, you think, oh, you know, I haven't paid attention to my network. I really haven't thought about my skills. I haven't updated my resume. And again, it points you to things where it's like, oh, you should probably do that irrespective of whether or not you get a raise.
Exactly, or get fired, yeah. It's always good to have a little backup.
Right,
yeah.
So in this case, the fear is actually good because it highlights things that you need.
Well, how do the fears handle fear?
So one of the things that I suggested is first defining the fear. So
Right.
really, really thinking, and I actually called this run the numbers because I find that for a lot of people with career fears, it's tied into money. It's tied into, again, losing the job perhaps and then being out of work and could I afford that? Or starting a business and then I'm going to lose all my capital. Well, how much are we talking about here? How much do you really need? So I find that there are a lot of things where you can actually just quantify them. So of course there are emotional fears as well, but I start with the numbers because you can actually just take out a pen and paper and write that stuff down.
How much do I actually need, you know?
Yeah, in terms of just start the business or how much of a raise would I be satisfied with or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say run the numbers. That's the first thing. And then the second thing, I call it change at the fringes. So if you think of a giant rug, right, with fringes at the end.
Right.
You know, you don't have to throw out the whole rug. You know, so the idea is, you know, can you change things on the outside? So when someone's thinking about a big career move, whether that's, you know, going into the boss and asking for a raise or making a career change or starting a business, can you do things without doing that first? So if you think about asking your boss for a raise and your biggest fear is, I'm going to lose my job, can you get your ducks in order around getting another job? Like, do you know that you could do that, that your network is strong, that you have a resume, that you know how to look for a job? Because that's going to give you ammunition in the sense of a sense of confidence and self-worth so that when you actually do it, it's going to be less of a big deal.
So changing at the fringes is sort of taking the far out possibilities?
Yeah, changing just on the outside so you don't do the actual thing first. You change a lot of the other things first. Before starting a business, you know, before leaving your job to start a business, start doing things on the side that are around business development. One of the things that I did was I actually joined a nonprofit where I had to raise money for them because I was not a natural salesperson.
Yeah, I hate that.
Right? And I didn't know how to ask for money. But in this particular case, I wasn't both asking for money and running a business. I was volunteering for this nonprofit and learning how to make that ask.
What a great idea.
An environment, right, that wasn't about me. So that's an example of changing at the fringes where I'm not doing everything at the same time.
I like that. It's like it's kind of like you have a fear, then go volunteer. Oh, it even rhymes. Have a fear, volunteer. That's a great idea, though. Really, it's like because you don't want to be. You don't want to be at the forefront where your job is and your salary and your benefits are dependent on what you can do. So you may as well go get behind the scenes and find what your capabilities are. What a great
some
idea.
Small changes first.
Yeah.
And then the final thing, so we've run the numbers, we change at the fringes, and then the final thing is you run away and join the circus. Right, so the idea is that ultimately you want to ask the boss for the raise. You want to start the business. You make the career change. And I think for people on the outside, it's going to look like you've run away and joined the circus because they're going to see only the end of it. They're going to see, oh my goodness, she had this big corporate job and she left that to start a business in the middle of a recession, which is basically what my partner and I did when we launched Six Figure Start.
Yeah.
Yes, but, well, timing-wise, because we launched in 2008.
Oh, nice.
But it was very well thought through. We had been talking about it for 2 years. We knew what was going on behind the scenes. And so that's the whole point, is that there are going to be naysayers, there are going to be people on the outside for which it doesn't make any sense. And that's because they haven't seen all of the steps that you've taken. So you can't worry about that, and you can't be influenced by that. You just have to prepare that it's going to look like you ran away and joined the circus.
And get ready for the comments, right. So one would be, the first thing would be to define the fear.
Yeah, run the numbers, define the fear, name what the failure looks like.
Yeah, and then change the fringes.
Yeah, make those small steps, do everything but the actual thing so that you're preparing yourself in a no-risk zone.
And then join the circus.
Yeah, then do it, right? It's a
Well, you mentioned six-figure start. Tell me how that happened.
Yeah,
and tell me what the title is. It's like, oh, I want to be that. I want a six-figure start immediately.
Yeah, so Six-Figure Start is a career coaching firm, and it's comprised entirely of former Fortune 500 recruiters. So, yes. So the runaway and join the circus was that my business partner, Connie Thanasula-Saraccio, and I are former recruiting colleagues, and we have, between the two of us, 40 years of recruiting experience. And so we've hired thousands of people and know exactly how that process works. And so the idea behind Six-Figure Start is that our clients are professionals, executives, aspiring executives on clearly six-figure management track jobs, and we're there all along the way, from the six-figure start to the finish.
Wow. So people would come to you in a higher echelon of job recruitment, I guess. They would just say, okay, I'm used to making six figures, and I want to switch.
Again, the reason
why
we
get them ready to make six figures.
Yeah, right. It's both, actually. So we launched the business, and the reason why we called it Six-Figure Start was because we identified that there's a beginning of the career. We work with a lot of students and recent graduates. So there was really a void in the marketplace for that generation. There's executive coaching, that's very popular. There's college admissions coaching, so there's coaching to get you into school, but then there's this wasteland
there's a little gap.
What happens?
It's like, how do I get from here to there?
Exactly. So that's where we come in. And what's so interesting is that's how we named the company, was specifically looking at that beginning of a career. And then because of the recession, there were people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s who came to us and said, do you only work with the start of the career? And of course not. We work with folks, at all, stages of the career. And so, yeah, our client base spans 4 decades.
So when you're saying that you work with them, and I can sort of understand, for the I don't want to say neophyte, the college student, coming out and saying, I got this huge degree that cost $1 million. How do I get some of this money back? I can sort of see it be like resume, and how do you sell yourself, and blah blah blah. Well, at Midpoint, what do you do with them?
Gosh, Midpoint and even executive level, this is the same type of job search. If you think about it, some people are thinking about, what do I do next, right? For them, it's almost a second graduation point. They have at this point 20, maybe 30 years in their career. Maybe they want to do something different. Maybe they want to get to the next level. I worked with someone who is a senior executive at a big pharmaceutical company, and his dream was to be a C-level executive at a biotech startup. And you might think, well, okay, so why doesn't he just do that? Well, it requires a whole new branding and technique to meet the right people, to position himself appropriately. And so that's what we worked on, basically. It's not obvious to folks. They're doing a job. They're not constantly doing a job search. That's where we come in.
And what I find is that sometimes when people are in the 6 figures and even moving to 7 figures, it's like they get money caught. It's like, oh my gosh, this is a high-paying job. I appreciate it. I recognize it. What am I going to do? So it's I'm going to suffer. I'll just suffer through, and I'll keep doing this job. So do you have any, I don't want to say courage building, but do you also do the pros and cons of them staying and leaving, or are they pretty sure they want to leave at that point or want to switch?
Yeah, so it depends on the person. So I have been at the stage where they know exactly what they want, and it's just a question of executing, like that pharmaceutical exec. I've also been...
That was so specific. This is what I want.
Very, very specific.
Right.
It's like, I know exactly what I want to do.
And the color of my desk, I want it to be black ebony.
It's an example of someone who knows the what, but not the how, right?
Yeah,
but then there are going to be people who aren't quite sure. They just know what they don't want. They know they don't want to be in the career that they want, but it's complicated with the fact that, especially at mid-career, you've built up an entire lifestyle. You might have kids that you're supporting, parents that you're supporting, a mortgage, a spouse. So there are a lot of moving parts, and so it isn't just, oh, what is it that I want? It's, okay, what is it that I want in the context of everything else that's happening? And so sometimes, it's about helping them think through possible industries or roles that they could play, or sometimes it's even broader than that, different lifestyles altogether, starting a business, that type of thing. So absolutely, pros and cons.
I find, especially in the coaching world, because I did it and everyone I know did it, they went from some strict, standard job where you went to an inn every day, and suddenly it's like, oh, I have my own business, and there's nobody to talk to. It's like, except my clients. And that's a whole transition thing too. It's like if someone wants to do entrepreneurial things as opposed to doing the corporate ladder, that's a massive change. Do you have? Is this just one-on-one coaching, or do you have programs that people go through, or workshops, or?
Yeah, so we work with universities, and so in that way, we do programs, workshops, and also one-on-one coaching. We work with corporations, so we will do programs, workshops, or series of workshops, or small group coaching, or one-on-one coaching. And then finally, we work with individuals, and that would be one-on-one.
So you tailor make whatever you whatever's needed, you can provide it?
Yeah, and we have a team of coaches. So it's, my business partner has an expertise. She's longtime financial services, has always worked in, Fortune 50, bulge bracket financial institutions. I'm very different. I was a classical pianist by training, and then
it's a little different.
Yes, then became a banker, a management consultant, then dropped out of corporate entirely to be an actor, then got into recruiting, and so
don't you do some comedy stuff
I
too?
do, and I'm a stand-up comic. And so I have a lot of different facets to my background. So I'm almost the antithesis of her in that way. So I have worked with big companies and recruited for big companies, but also myself have done different things. And so we can speak to a lot of different career paths. And then we have a team of associate coaches who also have their expertise. And so depending on what an individual needs and where they are, right, it can be very strictly defined, or it can be, what am I doing? We can help them.
Something's not, the clients that I get are like, I know something's not right. I don't know what it is, but I'm not happy.
Right. I don't know what I want, but I don't want this.
I know what I don't want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where does fear come into your coaching on that?
So, a lot of the anxiety, so a lot of the, well, I don't know how to do that, or is this going to work, is fear-based. So one of the easiest examples is networking. So we've all read, right? We've all read in the popular literature
you gotta do
that to get a job or to get business, right? As an entrepreneur, people buy from people they know, like, and trust. And so that is all about developing a relationship. So any way you look at it, you can call it relationship building. It's still networking, by the way, but you can call it something else to make it more palatable. But a lot of the resistance around the things we know we're supposed to do is fear-based. So I don't want to network because I'm shy. I don't want to get on social media because I don't want to put myself out there. I don't want to put a resume together because then I'm going to have to look at my career path and my career choices and see where there are gaps.
How I messed up.
What might have been. Exactly. So there's fear, underlying a lot of these things. And so I wouldn't say that in our coaching we point out the fear. The idea isn't to make the person more fearful. The idea is to give them...
They strip you of confidence and then they build you up again. It's a unique program, yes. If you make it all the way through, you can do it.
We break you down to put you back together. No, I mean, the idea is not to make you more fearful. The idea is to give you actionable tools so that you can move forward in your career or in your business despite the fear, which is what we had started with. That's how the fears handle fear. It's not that the fear goes away.
Right.
It's that the fear is there, but you move on.
You just move through it. And I think maybe one of the things would be to just accept that it is there. And it might be, you can listen and just, it shouldn't paralyze.
Yeah, one of my favorite compliments that a coaching client gave me, he had always struggled with a lack of confidence. He had always felt like he should be further along in his career than he should have been, even though he had worked with some of the top names in his industry and had won awards. I mean, he was just so, it was one of these imposter syndromes. I think he had so many accolades, and yet he didn't feel like it was enough. He felt like he should be further along. And we worked together for, at this point, almost a year. And about 6 months into the coaching, he said, you know what, even my friends are noticing that I'm a different person, that I show up differently, that I'm there and I'm in it. And I just felt like that's an example. We never talked about fear directly,
Right.
but it was about, you can do this, and these are the things these are the small steps that you can do. Let's make them small enough that they're palatable.
Bite-sized, right.
And it was just amazing. It was really amazing.
Yeah, because I think sometimes when you say, oh, that sounds like a fear to me, or that sounds like an unfounded, assumption and all, then people start fighting, what? No, are you crazy? No, I'm not afraid. Blah, blah, blah.
Right, they might get defensive, or it might give them something else to think about. What?
Oh, you mean I'm afraid too?
No, I'm a coward.
Yes, tread gently. But so, what prompted you, besides obviously common sense, to write a paragraph, a paragraph or two?
Write a chapter. Well, it's interesting. So it all comes back to networking, right? So Sophronia Scott is the editor of this anthology, and she was pulling together a number of thought leaders. Donald Trump contributes a chapter. He writes about having no fear, which is, of course, what the Donald does.
Yes.
Jack Canfield is in there, Pamela Slim, and
Wow.
I was actually just starting out in our business. We were about year 2 of our business, and she wanted to have a chapter on career. She was looking for a career thought leader, and I raised my hand. I went after it and said, this is why I should be the one to write this book, and this part of the book. This is why I'm an expert. And and then
Did you have any fear when you did that?
Absolutely. I mean, there's always that fear of someone saying no. But at the end of the day, what, she going to come after me? I mean,
Whip you around? No, you're not good
right,
enough.
Exactly. I was just like, well, the worst thing that could happen, again, so what is the worst thing that can happen?
Yes.
The worst thing that can happen is that she says no.
Yeah.
And my feelings are bruised a little bit.
Right.
But I felt like it was worth going after, and also just pulling it together, because I sent samples of my writing and really thinking through what would I talk about. I felt like I could use that in some other way, shape, or form. If she didn't take it for the anthology, that I would repackage that or repurpose that as a series of blogs or whatnot. And so I felt like this was worth going after.
Yeah, and I mean, in the old saying, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Who would know if indeed you could do it? I have a thing where it's like, ooh, I think I might be afraid of that, and it's like, well, then now you have to do it. As soon as I acknowledge the fear, it's like, oh, now I got to do it. Or at least I got to try.
Right, and then once you name it, it's like, really, I was afraid of that. Once you just make a move towards it, then you think, oh, I can do this. Yeah.
So tell me, how do people find, well, we have it at the bottom of the screen there, but so if they wanted to get in touch with you or find out your program, or if indeed they're thinking about it, so it would be sixfigurestart.com. Okay, I don't think we have the website down there, so it's sixfigurestart.com. And that would be, so that's really for people who are can they just do I don't want to say a tune-up, but can they do a checkpoint? Like, oh, maybe I want to leave, maybe I don't.
Yeah, absolutely. So our coaching is customized. Our programs are not long. It's not signing up your firstborn,
Good.
and signing up for a long period of time. Most of our clients really coach with us for just a handful of sessions because, again, it's about fine-tuning actually all along the way. So someone might drop in for a salary negotiation tune-up, or a resume tune-up, or a branding tune-up, or just bouncing some ideas. I had someone actually last night that I was working with who's in a startup, and she's creating actually the compensation plan for herself. So she's thinking through what would it mean to own a piece of this business, what would incentivize both her and the founder who had put in already a lot of sweat equity, a lot of branding into the firm, how could they work together? And so thinking through some of those issues. So that's absolutely a bite-sized
So you could do soup to nuts. I mean, somebody like the college student going, oh, now what do I do? I got the degree, and what do I do?
Or the mid-level executive who says, now what do I do?
Right, I want to totally switch careers. And that's, 2008 was a rough year, God knows, but it was also a pivotal year. And what I did, I was not doing career coaching at the time, but I have an HR background, so I went, okay, you know what, why not use it? Everybody needs it right now. And what I found was it was a time for reinvention. It was suddenly the rug had been pulled out from everybody, and it was like, oh, I played by the rules, and I'm still not getting what I wanted, so I may as well do what I want to do. So I found that, so it might not have been quite as crazy as you think to start up your business in.
Well, we timed it, again, people on the outside are going to think that you were crazy and ran away and joined the circus.
Yes.
But Connie and I actually looked at the market, and we knew by 2007 that something was going to go wrong, and we felt like we wanted to be on the other side of recruiting because there wasn't going to be any recruiting to be had. People were going to be losing their jobs, and it was going to be a really, really tough time. And so 2008, we had double-digit growth, high double-digit growth for every year of our business since we launched in 2008 because of that phenomenon where people had the rug pulled out from under them. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so that created clients, and I found it was a rough year, but it did create clients in the fact that it was like, wait a minute, the game has changed. I need to change. Which
actually is, a great example of the other side of fear. We always think of things going wrong, and the best example of things going wrong is 2008, 2009, and the depths of the recession. But there's always a way to come out stronger and to come out ahead. And you might not think of the depth of a recession as a great time to start a business, but it's a great time to start some kinds of business.
Absolutely. And if the business is to help other people get out of the recession.
Exactly.
You become a genius suddenly.
Time. Yeah.
So it seemed to all work. Now, where can they find this anthology you're talking about?
It's actually on our site. So you go to sixfigurestart.com and you can click onto the books page. I always say that the first step for people on the site should just be free resources. To go onto the site, we have a lot of articles on there with career tips, and that's the best place to start.
Wow, sixfigurestart.com. I would say that's the place to go. Well, believe it or not, we've got like 15 seconds left. This went so quickly, and she's got so much more to tell us. So, Caroline, I can only thank you once again for coming on and helping us deal with fear and realizing that fear is not only your friend, but a resource that you can use. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Laurie.
It was fun.